Welcome back, everybody. My name is All Fun and Games. I stream every day on Twitch TV, and I also make fun videos here on YouTube. Okay, so let's talk about the 10 or maybe up to 10 most beginner things you should know before joining into Don't Starve Together. So let's go in. No, let's back it up. Okay. Because I think just joining into a game and just getting crazy into it right away is probably not the best to do. So let's talk about the first step you should do. Okay, so you just got Don't Starve Together, or maybe you just recently got it a little while ago and you don't really know where to go in the game or whatever else. Okay, first things first. Remember, you get a free copy of Don't Starve Together to give to a friend. That's right, you buy Don't Starve Together, you get a free copy. So go look in your Steam inventory because it's probably sitting there. I'll talk more about that in another video. Anyways, first thing you want to do is you want to go to host game if you are looking to host a game for a friend, or just in general, you have to host a game to play it. If you go to browse games, it's going to bring you to somebody else's game, which you don't want to do, or maybe you do, I don't know. Host game. Go to create a world, and here you can choose endless, well, not endless, but you can choose whatever mode you want to do. Relax, endless, survival, wilderness, lights out. They each tell you what they want to do. If it's beginning, or if you're playing beginners, you can do relax. Just remember that relax is a little bit not how a lot of people play if you're joining in their world. Most people do endless or survival, which is pretty much a different format of relax in the sense that relax tells you a more relaxed playstyle with less threats for the world. Survivors will not die from starvation, freezing, overheating, and darkness. So it's not really the way to play Don't Starve Together. So if you are looking to practice or get, used to the game first, you could do this. I would probably recommend getting yourself in and used to it right away and then backtracking to this after, because it's entirely possible that once you do this, when you finally decide to go endless or survival, you might say, okay, this is a little bit too crazy for me. So you decide which way you want to go. Anyways, we choose endless, and then from there, you just put your password in, whatever you want people to tell you, or sorry, to use when they join your server. Set your stuff. I would avoid mods early game, and then here's where you choose your setup. For now, let's just leave it default as why wouldn't we? Just leave it default. You know what I mean? Just leave it the way it is, and then click generate. Okay. When the world decides to generate and get in there, that's when the actual fun starts, and that's when you start to go a little bit crazy trying to learn about what you do first. So let's talk about the first thing to remember when we get in DST while we're just loading in. Don't worry about dying. Dying and Don't Starve Together is a way you learn on how to play Don't Starve Together. So once again, don't worry about dying. You might see tutorials out there like how not to die and how to survive for 10 days or 1 year without dying in DST. Don't worry about that too much. Dying and Don't Starve Together lets you learn from your mistakes, and that's how the game is meant to be played. So don't worry about it too much, as there's multiple different ways to revive. If you played survival, though, that might be a different format, as when you do die, the world will regenerate if you are not anywhere near somebody that can revive you within the allotted time. So I probably would suggest doing endless or relax mode like I mentioned. Okay. We're in the game. Go ahead and choose your character of what you want. I would probably suggest any other character that I've mentioned in my best beginner characters to play. First things first, choose a character that you want to play or that you like or that looks familiar. Wilson is pretty much generic, so you're not going to have many pros or cons. Now, we got into a world with twiggy trees. This might be a regeneration world. Now, I'll tell you why that's in a second. First thing you want to do is gather twigs and grass if you have a chance to do so. So gather as many twigs and grass as you can. Once you get a bunch of twigs and grass, that's basically your start from there. But first, we want to look around and see if we have a proper world. As you can see, I already have a bunch of twiggy trees. I don't like this setup because I, for one, am not a big fan of twiggy trees. So, how do we get rid of twiggy trees? Well, why are twiggy trees bad, or why are twiggy trees not the easiest to play when you first get into a world? This is actually a good generation because I want people to see that if this happens, you can easily go to server commands and click regenerate world. The reason why I'm recommending getting yourself regular twig bushes instead of twiggy trees is because twiggy trees are good if you wait for them. As they get bigger and grow bigger, they'll drop all the twigs automatically, so you could just go up to them and pick them up and then rinse and repeat that method. But they also don't give you twigs very early on, so finding twigs is going to be a little bit tough. So usually what I do is I regenerate until I have regular twigs and regular grass. Okay, so we're about 5 minutes into the video, and we've just started showcasing exactly what to do. So I regenerated the world, and we're back again with more twiggy trees. Oh, yeah. You might have to do this a few times until you end up coming across it, or you can follow my previous video where I showcased how to make sure that twiggy trees never show up in your world using classic mode, which is a part on your world generation settings. Normally I do that, but for this video I want to keep it short and sweet, try to anyways, and where I basically showcase on if you jump into a world, what to do. Now, keep in mind, you can go through and play a normal world with twiggy trees. That's not a problem. But for me, if you are a beginner in the game, you probably want to do this until you at least get yourself regular little twiggy bushes. And that's what I'm trying to do. I absolutely hate twiggy trees. I find them that they're very annoying and that they get in the way all the time. There we go. Now we have regular saplings. Okay, so now we're going to gather ourselves some twigs. We're going to gather ourselves some berries, and we're going to gather ourselves some flints. So the basic necessities that you need in Don't Starve Together are twigs, grass, flint. So twigs, grass, flint, and rocks. And of course, wood too. And gold comes a little bit later on when you need to go a little bit move up in science. So the way that it works is when you look at your crafting menu, you're going to see multiple different things. Anything that shows a lock on it means that you have to have certain upgrades in order to receive that or make that item. So if you click on here, it's going to say, use the science machine to prototype this. Well, if you click on science, prototypers, and stations, you can see that our science machine is something that we can make. Obviously, we can't make the alchemy machine without actually making the science machine. So the science machine is our next step to science. But let's not move there just yet. What I would suggest doing is grabbing as many resources as you can. Take your twigs, take your grass, and start organizing them in your inventory with what you best want to, how you want to make it look. So if you want to make it look nice and fancy, feel free to do so. As you walk around the world, your best bet is to actually go around the outskirts of the world. So on the outside, just keep kind of drawing on the outside near the water without getting too close to obviously enemies. So if you go along the edge, you want to basically make an outer rim of everything so you can know where each biome is. But if you just started out and Don't Starve Together, going out in the outer rim is probably not the best route just yet because we don't really want to flow too much into getting ourselves into a little bit of danger. So let's just try to get ourselves a basic base made and kind of go from there. I've showcased how to survive in day one before, but for now I want to focus on a lot of the tips and just kind of get you into a point where you know exactly what to do to at least get the basics down. So like I said, grass, twigs, get yourself some food, carrots, whatever else, and then make sure that you have a little bit of flint. When we eventually find a little rock biome, it's going to get a little bit easier. But for now, let's make it even easier for us. So when you finally discover 2 flint on the ground, the next tip that you're going to need is a pickaxe with a tip on the end of it. Ha ha ha. Anyways, so when you get that pickaxe, you're going to automatically grab all the stuff from it and make sure that you now are recovering some rocks and some flints. So every time you get every time you get 2 flint in the game, do not spend it on making an axe because a pickaxe is what you want so you can recover the lost flint that you used to make said pickaxe. Now this pickaxe will be useful anytime we come across more rocks so we can smash it up and get more and more flint, thus bringing us more resources. As we wander around, I'm going to try to focus on getting a little bit more food and then try to find out if I can find any type of rocks with gold in it. So this is where the fun starts. We've already established getting ourselves some twigs and some grass, and we got ourselves some rocks and we got ourselves some flint. Now that we have even more, we should start getting the next best recipe. So we have an abundance amount of flint. Usually I suggest anything over 4 or 5 will give you exactly the opportunity that you need to make the next step, which is an axe. And axes are awesome. What I'm doing here is pretty much going to go around and gather a little bit more just before the first night hits. The first night is not too complicated as you can pretty much walk around with a torch, and we'll wait to get there when we can. So remember, step 1, or I guess I should say, the actual 10 beginner tips would have been going through the process of what I mentioned at the earliest before actually getting into the game. Getting into the game though, and we're actually going through the process of learning what to do when we get in the game is gather resources. So step 1, gather twigs, grass, make sure that you get all the basic necessities, and then now that we have a little bit of food in our inventory, we know that we're going to survive for a little while without actually getting too hungry. If you come across anything else, like for example, you come across like a few butterflies, you can feel free to kill those as they are amazing sources of healing in case you get yourself in a little bit of trouble. But let's not get sidetracked too much with butterflies because butterflies can be a little bit finicky and take a little bit of time to actually attack if you don't know what you're doing. Take your axe, and the next thing is gathering none other than a little bit of wood. This little beginner guide might take a little bit of time as I'm not using any cutscenes because I feel like cutscenes are hard to understand. If all I did was just cut all my videos out and go next, chop wood, chop this, blah, blah, blah. So I really want to showcase it step by step. A lot of my videos are all step-by-step guides because I feel like it's very hard when it's just a flash screen indicating what to do without actually realizing how to get there or, something to follow along to. Now, remember, I have made an entire year and Don't Starve Together video, so you can actually go through the process and watch that if you like, and that is something that, will be useful if you want somebody to feel like they're playing with you and showcasing how to play. And that's an entire year and a half, I should say, in DST. Yes, walking you through, no cutscenes, no nothing. So if you have a chance to watch that, please do. I got to re-show the case at another video because I feel like a lot of people ask me all the time if I have any full guides for DST, and I have plenty. It's just you have to make sure that if you like something like that, it's going to be useful for actually, like I said, almost holding your hand, teaching you how to do different things. But today we're showcasing all the 10 different tricks, or as many as I can kind of cram into a small little video. Okay, so we got our basic resources. We got our twigs, we got our grass, we got our flint, we have our rocks, and now we have our wood. Okay, so step 1 would have been gather your resources to make a torch. So now we can make ourselves an awesome torch. Step 2 would be gather your resources in order to make yourself a little fire pit. What are we missing? We're missing a few more rocks. A fire pit is a pit of fire. Well, yes, that's exactly what it is. That's going to stay there forever without actually going bad over time. So a temporary one would be what you see right here, which is just a regular campfire. The problem with the campfire is once the fire goes out of it, it's not going to come back. It's going to disappear and entirely just turn to ash. So that's why you want an actual fire pit, so the rocks will stay there, the campfire will go away, and then you have the chance to have actually going through the process of just refueling it whenever you need. Now, it does take a lot of rocks to make it, so I'd probably suggest that if you decide to put down your your fire pit, I should say, that it goes actually where your base is going to be. So step 1, make the torch so we can get through the nighttime. Step 2 would be get the ample amount of resources to actually make yourself the fire pit. And then step 3 is moving up into the category of making something better or getting used to making something better by finding the gold mines. So if we look on our map here, the gold veins actually show a little bit of gold in there. And this is something that we need to use in order to go up to a different, level of science. So now we have our one little gold nugget, which means we can go and make ourselves a science machine. So now that we've gathered our logs, we've gathered our rocks, we've gathered our gold, we can now prototype the science machine. But don't put it down right away. Don't put it down right away. We have our torch that'll help us make it through the actual little bit of, well, we have a very small amount of darkness. So once it gets through the night, don't worry, this torch will last through the whole night. We can start prototyping a bunch of stuff. Let's prototype the fire pit, shall we? Okay. So we have the prototype for the fire pit, we have our prototype for the science machine, and now we can just walk around and explore the map while we're in darkness. Usually when you have your torch out at night, it's probably best to just go around and try to stay away from any swamps or any area that's going to attack you, as it can get a little bit annoying in not being able to attack. Of course, if I switch over to my axe, I'm not going to be able to attack. If you want your torch to last a little bit longer, what you can do is go like this, and when your sanity will drop down, and you can just rely on fireflies instead of your torch if you for some odd reason forgot to make one. Fireflies will continuously come back, and this will be showcased in another video on how to stay alive at nighttime without any sort of light. And you just keep shifting back between these, but you do lose sanity from doing that. Okay, it's daytime again. So at nighttime, while we walked around with our torch, as we continue to do so. So that would be step number 5, making sure that when your torch is out at nighttime, that you're not just standing still. Explore, why not, right? If you do come across something that's going to attack you, just run in the opposite direction, and then you'll get away from it, no problem. But at nighttime, you shouldn't just stand there with your torch in one spot. You should actually explore to continue to explore the map. Okay. So we've gotten what we needed now. We've prototyped quite a few things. Let's go back and make ourselves a small little base. So I would say step 6, where are you actually going to be basing? Okay, let's talk about that. Why do you want to choose a spot to base when you can just choose wherever you want to, as hey, look, this spot looks beautiful, let's just base here. Wrong. You got to make sure that wherever you're actually deciding to base is somewhere that's going to be either in the middle or in somewhat close to a part of the map that's going to be resource heavy, or at least have some sort of good access to a wormhole. Normally, what I would suggest, if you are playing endless mode and you plan on actually dying a lot, or if you're very new to the game, I would suggest actually going next to where the portal is. Because if you do die, you can just come back alive right there. You will lose a little bit of life, but guess what? It's easier than actually roaming all the way around the world trying to find a touchstone. So what I would suggest doing is look around. If you see an area that will potentially regenerate a lot of rocks, or somewhere that would be creating a meteor biome. You don't know what a meteor biome is. If you see an area that has rocks or boulders like that, that means that it's in meteor territory. So if for some odd reason the meteors start hitting over here, it's entirely possible that they could hit our base. So what we want to do is we want to move over a little bit further away. So let's go over here just a little bit more, just to live amongst the grass, and here we should be perfectly fine. Okay, step 6, building that base. Sorry, step 7, because step 6 was choosing where we're going to base. Now we're going to put down our little fire pit. We're going to put down our little science machine. Now, when you put down your fire pit, I normally suggest putting it down at nighttime to save yourself a little bit of free fuel for the night, but for now, it's okay. Now that we have our science machine, we're going to go and move on to the further steps. Making ourselves a backpack. Get yourself a nice handy dandy backpack, and then we start organizing our backpack. I usually suggest putting some logs back there, putting whatever gold you have, and putting tools in here as well. And now that we have our science machine, our next step, which is 7 and 8, which is making our backpack, now we can make ourselves our handy dandy spear. Our spear is going to be for obviously reasons of fighting. I don't think I should have to explain that. And then step 8 and 9 would be, like I said, which I'm talking about right now, the spear, and also making yourself some armor. Early on, you could just make yourself some grass armor and then getting yourself a log suit when you finally get a science machine. So, same situation, just double click on that until you can finally craft yourself none other than the log suit. If you don't have ample amount of grass to do so, just go out there and find yourself some grass. Okay, now we're able to go around. Let's check our present real fast just to make this video even more special than it already is. La 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 la, could it be an elegant? Hey, it's shoes. Now that we have our spear, we have our log suit, we've survived one night, we have our free pine cones, what's our next step in order to do? Well, we want to try to get ourselves the next set of upgrades, which is the alchemy machine. Okay, so once again, we've survived an entire night of Don't Starve Together. We want to continue to explore, but we want to make sure that we have some protection. So we have our backpack equipped, which means that if we do get attacked, we're going to take damage. So step number 7, make sure that if you are about to get into a battle with anything, you're going to want to equip your log suit, leaving your backpack on the ground. So what I probably would suggest doing is keeping your backpack in an inventory spot where you can easily press the number sign in order to indicate. So if I'm walking around, and I press number 2, I'm going to automatically do that. And if I pick it back up, number 2 again. And I pick it back up, number 2 again. So I can easily switch out if I end up starting to get attacked. My hunger is starting to diminish, so what am I going to eat? Let's stick to eating carrots. Carrots raw are actually extremely good value, so you want to make sure that as if you get a chance to eat that, well, go ahead and do so. And then as we move on down the road, in the next video, I will showcase step 10 through step 11 through 20, so you can actually see what's probably next after this. But I would say the next step from here is pretty much finding yourself some more gold veins so you can eventually make yourself the alchemy machine. But we already got a little bit lucky with the amount of gold that we found, so we want to move over to making our alchemy machine, and from there, our science has been unlocked and we just have to worry about survival. And that is something that you have to learn yourself or follow along with any of my other videos where I showcase how to survive continuously throughout the year. Okay. So what are we missing? Well, we're missing some logs. As you can see, it requires 4 boards, which are 4 logs apiece. So if I go to actually click on this science machine, this alchemy machine, all it's going to do is make me none other than the doodads first. Now I have two doodads. I have 2 of the rocks, but I cannot. From here on, it says it looks like I'm missing some more important components. And I'm missing none other than the boards. They require 4 logs apiece times 4, so we have to continuously chop down some trees. And let's go ahead and do that, and then we can finish up the tutorial that basically showcases the top 10 things in order to get yourself started. Now, remember, if you're going through the process of playing Don't Starve Together, multiple different people would showcase different things that you need to learn first and foremost. For example, they might showcase on how to fight things, so they might showcase on how to eat things or make crock pots or special recipes and all that. But truthfully, the first 10 things that you need to do, or the first 10 tips that you need to do, are exactly what I'm showcasing right now. Because if you decide to jump the gun and say, okay, now I'm making some cool recipes and all that other stuff, well, you might be forgetting about the basics, getting yourself some more science, and making yourself a safe little base. A base that is not going to get hit or damaged if it decides to rain down meteors on you. So we've already showcased quite a few different things, and I hope that in the next few little bits that you decide to play Don't Starve Together, that you might end up actually surviving longer than you expect. Now, keep in mind, if you get unlucky and you come across any type of, enemy that decides to attack you or whatnot, well, then that depends on your world generation that you are in. So not all world generations are going to be the same, meaning what you see me do here might not replicate exactly how it is in your world. So that being said, just be cautious when you're walking around inside the constant and Don't Starve Together, as it's pretty unforgivable. Okay, now that I've gathered around another 20 logs, I'm going to go back and make our alchemy machine. But before I do that, I actually want to gather a little bit more logs, and this is the reason for doing this. In my inventory, I usually like to leave a certain amount of stuff, and that's where I'll leave my last little bit of tip for you. What I like to do is leave at least 10 resources of each thing. So if you ever find that you're less than 10 cut grass, less than 10 twigs, less than 10 flint, etc., try to get at least 10 of said items in your inventory, because what that means is you're now able to pre-craft or craft anything that is needed in that amount of time. So if I wander around and I don't have a lot of rocks on me or I don't have a lot of cut grass, well, now I can no longer make my torch, and now I'm stuck out there at nighttime in the middle of nowhere with no source of light. So you always want to make sure that you generally keep that on you. What I'd also recommend doing is always leave yourself a pre-crafted tiny little fire. If you have a little campfire and you're able to actually pre-craft that, that kind of saves you in case you forgot to actually make yourself a torch. So worst case scenario, you can put down that anywhere you want. Okay. So now we got a little bit of stuff to refuel this. We have our handy dandy stuff that we've now acquired. We can go back to our alchemy machine, click on it, boom, 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 and now we have moved on to the next step of none other than science, then moving further down our list of science. And what is the bonus about doing here? Well, this is where we can move on to better and bigger things, golden tools, which will get us more and more resources as we go on. But that is it for now. The video is already 20 minutes long, and I wanted to keep it short and sweet, but I also didn't want to cut down any scenes. If this has helped you in any way, and if you found that, hey, you know what, guess what? I am now surviving longer than I thought I could because of these top 10 tricks. Well, guess what? I want to hear your thoughts about it, so feel free to leave a comment down below if it helps you in any way possible. Keep in mind, as I said before, you might look at this and say, hey, you know what? I don't think those are the top 10 tricks. I think that if it comes down to Don't Starve Together, it should be things like recipes and all that other stuff, as I mentioned previously. Yes, of course, there are other things to do, but this is the easiest way of getting yourself through a day in Don't Starve Together, or at least how I get myself through a day in DST. As always, things are meant to change, and that's why we're going to continue this tutorial down the road. So this is the first top 10 things to do. Let's focus on the next things. All right, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll catch you in the next one.